Hiking is supposed to be peaceful, a way to escape the noise, to clear your mind, to reconnect with nature. But deep in the forests, the mountains, the forgotten trails, some things are waiting. Things that were never meant to be found. Tonight, these are 5 true hiking horror stories that prove some trails should never be walked alone. I've always been a fan of hiking. There's something about being completely cut off from the rest of the world that feels freeing. Back in 2017, I was studying abroad in Russia, and a friend of mine suggested we hike the Ural Mountains during our winter break. I was no stranger to cold, but Russia in February is something different entirely. We weren't doing anything too extreme, mostly local trails around a small town called Ivdel. But one night over cheap beers, our guide Alexei told us about Dyatlov Pass, a place north of where we were. He said it was where 9 hikers disappeared under mysterious circumstances in 1959. Some were found half-dressed in the snow. Some had massive internal injuries without any external wounds. One girl's tongue was missing. He said it was haunted in a way that even the locals wouldn't talk about. Of course, being young and stupid, my buddy Derek thought it would be a great idea to take a small detour near Dyatlov Pass. Not on the pass. He said, just close enough to say we were there. Alexei didn't like the idea. He warned us it was still dangerous, especially in winter, but eventually he caved and said he'd take us close, but not through it. I still wish he'd just said no. The morning we left, it was clear but freezing, about 20°C Celsius. We layered up, packed a tent, emergency supplies, and left most of our heavier gear in town. It was supposed to be a short trip, camp one night, hike back. We reached a clearing near sunset. The mountains loomed darkly against the blood-red sky. There was a heavy silence, like even the wind was too scared to blow. It should have been beautiful, but all I felt was this gnawing sense of unease. Alexei looked uncomfortable. No fire, he said. No noise. We camped quiet. We set up camp quickly and ate cold food from our packs. The temperature dropped hard after sunset. Derek and I joked around, trying to keep spirits up, but even he was noticeably quieter. By 11 p.m., we were inside our tent. Triple-layered sleeping bags, thermal clothes, still freezing. I woke up sometime later to a sound I couldn't immediately place. It was like a low humming, almost like someone humming a song under their breath, but deep and mechanical. I thought maybe it was the wind vibrating the tent poles. I pulled my beanie tighter over my ears and tried to go back to sleep. Then I heard footsteps, crunching in the snow, heavy, deliberate. At first, I figured it was Alexei checking the perimeter. But then I remembered. Alexei had his own tent about 50 feet away, and these steps, they were circling our tent. I nudged Derek. He was awake, eyes wide. I could tell he heard it too. We stayed perfectly still, listening. The steps would move around one side of the tent, then stop, long pauses, then slow, deliberate steps around the other side. Derek whispered, "Maybe it's an animal." "Too heavy," I mouthed back. The humming sound was louder now. It was outside, close, vibrating the very air around us, a low, unnatural resonance. I could feel it in my bones. We didn't dare unzip the tent. Alexei's words about being silent kept echoing in my head. The steps eventually stopped. But then something pressed against the side of the tent. A hand. I could see the imprint of long, bony fingers pushing into the fabric. It stayed there, unmoving. Derek was breathing so hard I thought for sure whoever, whatever, was out there would hear it. I didn't even blink. I just watched in horror as another hand appeared, then another, until the tent was surrounded by them, pressing and dragging across the nylon in slow, deliberate motions. After what felt like forever, they withdrew. The humming faded. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. At first light, we stumbled out into the snow, looking for any tracks. Nothing. No footprints around the tent. No signs of disturbance. Even Alexei swore he heard nothing. We packed up faster than I thought humanly possible. None of us spoke much on the hike back. Every so often, I think I heard that low humming again, faint and far away. Weeks later, back at school, I couldn't shake the feeling. I started researching more about the Dyatlov Pass incident. One of the more bizarre theories: the hikers heard a deep, low-frequency hum that drove them into panic, causing them to flee their tents into the freezing cold without proper gear. Some claimed it was infrasonic waves caused by the wind interacting with the mountains. Others said it was something else, something not of this earth. I don't know what we experienced out there. Maybe it was just the cold playing tricks on us. But sometimes, late at night, when everything's still, I swear I can hear that humming again. Closer. Every time. Three summers ago, I went on what was supposed to be a simple solo hiking trip through the Smoky Mountains. I'd hiked the area plenty of times before, but this time I decided to camp overnight off one of the lesser-known trails, a ridge trail that was barely maintained and barely traveled. It was peaceful at first, birds chirping, sunlight filtering through the heavy canopy. I made camp on a small, flat ledge overlooking a steep drop. It was the perfect spot, isolated, quiet, and beautiful. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, a strange fog rolled in faster than I'd ever seen before. One minute it was clear. The next, the entire trail behind me was swallowed in thick, cold mist. I figured it was just mountain weather and zipped up my tent early. As darkness fell, I read a bit by flashlight until I felt myself nodding off. That's when I heard it. A voice, calling my name. I sat up, heart hammering. It was faint but distinct, coming from somewhere beyond the fog outside. "Hey, come here." It was a woman's voice, soft, almost sing-song. I stayed silent, frozen. Every survival instinct I had screamed at me not to answer. Minutes passed, then I heard it again, closer this time. "Come here, please." The voice was wrong. It wasn't urgent or scared. It was almost playful. I killed my flashlight and sat in the pitch black, trying not to make a sound. For hours, I sat there, listening. Occasionally, I'd hear soft footsteps crunching in the leaves, always just outside my tent. At one point, I swear I saw a faint shadow pass by, outlined only by the occasional flicker of moonlight. I never opened the tent, I just waited. When morning finally came, the fog had lifted, and everything looked perfectly normal. No tracks, no signs of anything out of place. I packed up in record time and hiked out, without looking back once. A few days later, I told a park ranger about it. He got real quiet and said, "That trail you camped on, a woman disappeared there 5 years ago. They never found her body." He said hikers sometimes reported strange things out there. Voices in the fog, missing time, feelings of being watched. He finished by saying, "Most folks know better than to camp overnight on the ridge. Now I do too." Last fall, I decided to take on a challenge I'd been dreaming about for years. A week-long solo hike across a remote stretch of the Cascades. I'd trained for months, planned my route down to the hour, and packed carefully emergency beacon, first aid kit, extra rations, even backup batteries. I felt ready. The first few days were everything I'd hoped for. Beautiful views, crisp autumn air, that freeing sense of being completely alone. The only sounds were birds, the rustling of leaves, and the crunch of my boots on the trail. On the third night, I camped beside a small creek deep in the forest. No signs of other hikers, not even distant campfire smoke, just endless trees and a sky full of stars. It was some time past midnight when I woke up to a noise outside my tent. At first, I thought it was an animal, a deer maybe, but the sound was rhythmic, deliberate. Footsteps, 2 feet. Slow, careful steps crunching through the underbrush. I lay there in absolute silence, listening. They circled my tent once, then again, never getting closer, never speaking. Eventually, the sounds faded into the trees. I barely slept after that. In the morning, there were no footprints around my tent. The ground was covered in damp pine needles. It should have shown tracks, but there was nothing. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it had been a bear after all, moving strangely. I forced myself to pack up and continue. But something felt wrong. As the day wore on, I kept catching glimpses of movement in the trees. Small, quick shadows just beyond my line of sight. Every time I stopped, the forest went still. But the feeling of being watched never left. By sunset, I'd reached a steep ravine that cut across the trail. The official path snaked down into the gully and back up the other side, but it was slow and treacherous. And that's when I saw it. A shortcut. A faint path through the trees to my right. It looked like it bypassed the worst of the descent. It wasn't on my map, but it was clearly there, worn into the earth by footsteps. Against my better judgment, I took it. The moment I stepped onto that path, the forest around me seemed to change. The trees grew denser, the air colder, the colors faded, everything was muted, grayish. I kept moving, telling myself it was just because the sun was setting. Shadows were playing tricks on me. But the path twisted and narrowed in unnatural ways. Trees leaned overhead like skeletal arms. The forest floor was littered with strange small bones, rabbits, birds, maybe squirrels, picked clean. And then, the eyes. I saw them first as tiny glints among the trees. Dozens of them, low to the ground. Pale, hollow reflections that didn't belong to any animal I knew. I told myself it was just trick light, dewdrops, moonlight bouncing off wet leaves. Then the eyes started moving. Fast, jerky, surrounding me on all sides. I ran. Branches tore at my jacket and face as I sprinted blindly through the woods. I didn't care about the trail anymore. I just needed to get out. My heart hammered in my chest, so loud it drowned out everything else. At some point, I tripped and fell hard, slamming my knee against a rock. Pain exploded through me, but I scrambled up and kept moving. The eyes kept pace. Eventually, the trees thinned, and I stumbled into a wide clearing. I gasped for breath, spinning around. The forest edge was lined with figures. Tall, thin silhouettes with elongated limbs, their hollow eyes shining faintly in the dark. They didn't move. They just stood there, watching, waiting. I backed away slowly, one step at a time, until I found a narrow deer trail leading downhill. I didn't think. I just ran. I didn't stop until I reached the ravine. Again, the real trail somewhere upstream of where I'd left it. I camped right there on the open path, too terrified to venture into the trees again. That night, I kept my fire burning until dawn. The next morning, as I hobbled down the mountain on my injured leg, I passed another group of hikers coming up. They smiled and waved casually. I almost asked them if they'd ever heard about the shortcut, but something told me not to. When I finally made it back to town, I went to the local ranger station. I told them about the strange path. The ranger, a grizzled guy who'd clearly been working the mountains for decades, went quiet when I described it. "You didn't take it, did you?" he asked. I nodded. He sighed deeply, rubbing his forehead. "That trail's not real. Every few years someone sees it, thinks it's a shortcut, But it doesn't go anywhere. Not anywhere you want to end up, anyway. He wouldn't say more. He just told me I was lucky to have gotten back. Lucky. Even now, months later, sometimes when I'm lying awake at night, I think about that clearing. Those hollow eyes. I wonder if they're still out there, just waiting for the next hiker who decides to take the easy way out. Maybe next time, the forest won't let them go. Some places leave a scar on the earth so deep that it lingers forever. Maybe it's tragedy. Maybe it's the sheer weight of fear. Maybe it's something we aren't meant to understand. Whether it's the icy isolation of the Ural Mountains, the haunted halls of a cursed hotel, or a blood-stained home where innocence was stolen, the result is always the same. Echoes. Echoes of footsteps where there should be none. Echoes of laughter, whispers, shadows, warnings maybe, or invitations. And if you're ever lucky or unlucky enough to find yourself in one of these places, listen closely. Sometimes it's not just the past that lingers. Sometimes it's still waiting for you.